We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. It. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Good afternoon, Jared. Here on it is Saturday, right?
Yeah, I was just checking because I didn't know what day it was. I got
a really hard time with the holidays, just everything going on. It's really difficult to keep track of the days here. Tyler Andrew from the Facebook page says finally some good news. I think that's what everybody's excited about is we're finally logging on here and having a conversation about some good things that are happening with the Michigan football program after, quite honestly, I mean, this has to be one of the strangest, wildest rides of a 2-week span in the entire history of this football program. But it ends with Michigan announcing officially the hiring of Kyle Whittingham, longtime head coach at Utah, on a 5-year, $41 million deal. Reportedly, Whittingham 177 and 88 in 21 seasons at Utah. He had 8 seasons of 10-plus wins, 9 or more wins in 20 seasons that he was there, and had a 13-0 season at one point. I mean, this guy's a future Hall of Fame coach. I know that when we started this coaching search and all of the names were getting thrown out, Jared, that Kyle Whittingham, at least initially, wasn't on that list, but that's where Michigan ends up. That's where Michigan, I guess you could say, settles. But I don't know, as we sit here today, I was kind of going through the emotions of it yesterday and trying to figure out how I felt about it. To me, Jared, as I sit here today on Saturday, this doesn't feel like settling for Michigan football. This feels like a really great step for the program, a big step forward. I think Michigan's gotten significantly better as a result of this hiring, but I'm curious, as you saw the news start to break yesterday and things were trending in this direction, and now that we're sitting here Saturday morning and that's the case, how do you feel about Kyle Whittingham as Michigan's next head football coach?
Yeah, I mean, I feel good, right? I think once you look at it, my initial thing, I was like, oh, I'm not the old guy. And I think I told you that. I'm like, man, come on. What are we doing?
You're an ageist.
Continuity, right? I wanted like 10 years, I want 15 years, something like that, you know? Hold on.
Oh, no. Are we having connection issues already? Good Lord. Are you back?
I don't know. Can you hear me? What was that?
I have no idea what happened. Go ahead.
All right. What did you hear me say? All my knowledge?
I heard basically what I heard you say is that you're an ageist and you don't like the fact that he's 66 years old. That's what we heard you say.
Wow. Summed it up so eloquently. No, I when I look back at it now, I think like you're right. Continuity is good, but the dude can probably coach for another 6 years easy. Seems like he's in shape. They said he still practices with the team sometime, runs at the hotels. You said something about that. I think you called him buff, which I thought was odd or something like that. But
he is buff. He's in shape, rides a motorcycle. Let's be honest. He's in better shape than 99% of the people who are critical of him and his age. I mean, yeah, he's a workout junkie. I mean, there's videos of him arm wrestling Pat McAfee on College Game Day and whooping his ass. I mean, anybody who's concerned about the age, I think it's kind of a valid concern, but he's only a year and a half older than Curt Cignetti. It's not like it's significant. And if you had told people in this fan base, hey, you can go out and get Curt Cignetti, hell, a good portion of them were even pushing for that when this coaching search started. And so I think the age thing really just became something to fall on, something to like say, okay, he isn't the home run hire that we wanted. But when you take the age part out of the equation, everything else to me, it is a home run hire. When you talk about the longevity, he was at Utah for 21 seasons, didn't have any scandals, no BS. He's a no nonsense type of guy. By and large, he is the type of guy that I feel like Michigan needs. I know that there was a big push for a lot of people that wanted Kenny Dillingham, and we talked about that a little bit out at Arizona State because he was a young up and coming head coach. But Kenny Dillingham was only there for 3 years, and there's no guarantee that you go out and get a guy like that and he's going to succeed in the pressure cooker that is the job at Michigan. And so in 3 or 4 years or 5 years, you could find yourself in a situation where Dillingham isn't living up to the expectation, and now you're back to the drawing board again. To me, the best thing that could have happened for this program is to land a known commodity, a no BS guy like a Kyle Whittingham and let him guide this program, to your point, Jared, for like the next I don't know, 4 or 5, could go longer, but he seems like a guy who for sure could be here for 5 seasons. And then you figure out what he's going to do from a staffing standpoint and maybe put his successor in place. But overall, Jared, when you look at what's gone on in this program over the last 5 seasons, to me, the hiring of Kyle Whittingham was exactly what this program needed. And I'm excited to see what comes as a result of it. And here you go. No, CJ Frazier from the Facebook page said, I read that he only follows like 5 women on Instagram and they're all members of his family. There's been a lot of that coming out since this hiring. Jared, this is one of my favorite things that I saw pop up here. It says Kyle Whittingham's only sugary side piece. And it just has a bag of Werther's. Listen, this is where we're at. This is what we need. And
this
I think
is the scandal, dude. He's going to come out wearing a tan suit or some crazy shit like those scandals, like this guy.
Maybe a bit of a sweet tooth, but for all the right reasons. And listen, man, I'm excited about this. I'm excited that it feels like the hiring of Kyle Whittingham is really just going to get us back to like the business at hand, which is the business of football. That's what we want to talk about. That's what we're here to discuss. All the other stuff is just, it's crazy how much of a distraction everything became within this program. I also thought this was interesting, Jared. Kyle Whittingham here, you can see him pictured in 2 different pictures here. Ironically, he was the opposing head coach when Rich Rod coached his first game at the University of Michigan. It was a loss to Utah. And then when Jim Harbaugh in 2015 became the head coach, he went on the road to go face Whittingham in Utah and was also handed a loss to Kyle Whittingham. So what a long journey, what a strange journey for Whittingham to end up here at this point in his career. But, there was talk about he wanted to step down. His successor was in place out in Utah, and he said he was moving on. He wasn't necessarily retiring. He referred to himself as being in the transfer portal. And he told the powers that be at Utah that, look, I'm not really looking for anything else unless a few things come available, unless a few things open up. And certainly Michigan was one of those jobs. I do believe it. So
Strome got fired, and 2 days later, this dude's like, "Oh yeah, I'm good here at Arizona State. I'm in the win now. Nothing, not related to that girl over there. Just saying, I'm gonna have to be single for a minute."
This had been a process, I think, that had played out over the last 2 years in Utah. That sort of this was the plan, and it was kind of just going this way. But yeah, I mean, you could speculate that maybe it was all convenient timing.
Bowl game? So his plan was to quit before the bowl game?
No, I don't think his plan was to quit before the bowl game. I'm just saying the whole situation with Michigan, like nobody knew that Sharon Moore was going to.
But he resigned 2 days later.
Sure, yeah, but him stepping down was already in the works. That was already part of the plan. Now, could the Michigan thing have sped up that process or changed things? Sure, absolutely. But here's what I'll say is that there were a lot of people that viewed this as Michigan settling. And some of it was from the Michigan fan base. A lot of it was from people, outside the Michigan fan base, rival fans that wanted to just look. It didn't matter who Michigan hired. They were going to shit on whoever it was. Yeah. But they view Kyle Whittingham as like Michigan settling. I just don't see it that way. I feel like Kyle Whittingham, this situation coming together, the pieces fell the way they did. Things went sideways with Sharon Moore. Kyle Whittingham was already in the process of stepping down at Utah. And it seems like right guy, right time for the right program. And I'm excited to see what comes of it. So that's where I'm at with this thing today. I know that some people were like, they wanted the big splashy hire. They wanted a Kalen DeBoer. Hell, some people were pushing for like, why? We talked about this on the last time we went live. Why can't Charles Woodson be the head coach, and why can't Tom Brady be there? Like all these ridiculous, bring Nick Saban out of retirement. When you talk about age, I mean, Nick Saban's got to be damn near 80 at this point.
74.
But yeah, I'm excited, man. That's where I'm at emotionally on this hire today. I'm excited because I feel like for the first time in a long time, Michigan's going to get back to doing what its focus should be, which is doing things the right way, focusing on football and guiding the program with integrity. When you're in this business for 21 years as a head coach and you make a move and there isn't a single person out there that has anything negative to say about you, there isn't any scandal, nobody's pulling out any skeletons from your closet. When you're in that business for that long and it's nothing but positive things to say about you and your integrity and how you guide a program, Jared, it's really hard to be unhappy about what Michigan did here in this hiring cycle.
I love that you finally given up on your Signetti bromance, and it seems like you're on this one now because this one's better. I can discuss this one. I can approve of this relationship. You know what I mean? It's a little bit better than your Signetti bromance. So
listen, I like guys that are borderline batshit crazy. I think that you need a bit of an element to that.
Old batshit crazy guys.
Right. Old batshit crazy guys that are just obsessed with football. And I think
that cry all the time and shit, like Sharon Moore apparently did.
Not guys who cry in staff meetings.
Not a red flag when he lost it at that Ohio State game, huh?
Well, look,
we were like, he's passionate. Now we're like, damn it, dude, he was batshit crazy. We were way off.
I think there are a lot of things we could look back on and say we should have seen it as a red flag during that time. Let me pull up my notes here because I just want to make sure that we're not missing anything. I know that there were a lot of people when they were talking about the head coaching search for Michigan. They were adamant that it had to be a Michigan guy. Only a Michigan guy can understand the Michigan football program. And here's a little interesting tidbit for you. Kyle Whittingham is just the second Michigan head coach who did not have a previous tie with the program since Bo Schembechler retired in 1990. Of course, the other head coach that was hired being Rich Rod. And so, Jared, I guess let me just ask you that because there was such a big push. There's this belief among many within the fan base that we've got to have somebody that understands Michigan. We got to have somebody who's connected to the program that understands the rivalries, especially with Ohio State. Here's Kyle Whittingham, a guy who spent 30 years out west, like no real ties to the Midwest, but a guy that's been doing it for a long time. Do you have any concerns that he doesn't have that history with the program?
No, I don't. The only time I ever wanted to play that card was when we were trying to get Jim Harbaugh because I thought like we wanted Jim Harbaugh. Other than that, I never subscribed to that Michigan man motto. None of that nonsense, man. I mean, and anybody who's around college football for 21 years, him more than that, knows the rivalry between Ohio State and Michigan, right? Like most teams just concede that that's the rivalry. You got some idiots like Auburn and Alabama that try to argue a little bit, but most people just concede that's the game. So so he understands the importance and he'll learn quick, right? Because people will tell him and he'll look around and he'll see Ohio State this, Ohio State that. What'd you do to beat Ohio State today? He'll see the culture quick. And he's an old school football guy, right? He likes to rush the ball. We like to do that too, but it looks like he throws it a little bit. We talked earlier about the quarterback had some pretty decent stats. So yeah, I'm on board. I'm on board.
Yeah. And Matt Carrier from the Facebook page, he says, the maturity factor is a win. These young guys aren't always the answer. This dude is tough as nails. Guy runs a tight ship. Welcome to the big house. I think that's where a lot of people are at on this. It just feels like there's almost like, even with a Kenny Dillingham, there was always a question about how are people going to react to this young guy in his mid-30s coming into a building that's highly energetic. And you've seen videos of a Kenny Dillingham like losing his shit on the field on a referee and kind of like, you never know how people are going to react to that. But a guy like Kyle Whittingham, it just feels like Michigan finally hired an adult in the room, right? Where things kind of felt like you weren't really sure. And I don't know how many shows we spent, Jared, where we were sitting here talking about like, where is the real leadership in this football program? Is it Sharon Moore? Where are the guys on the roster? It almost just kind of felt like a bit of a rudderless ship over the last 2 seasons. And now that we know what we know, it kind of makes sense why it felt that way. Because
right?
I think it all starts from the head down. And when you have a guy who's a part-time head coach who's distracted doing other things, I think that shit filters down to the players. And you can look, man, it takes a long time to build a solid culture inside of a locker room. And what we found out now is you can pretty much tear that down within the first month that you're on the job. And that's what seems to have happened in Ann Arbor. And so the hiring of Kyle Whittingham really is, to me, the strongest signal yet that the people that were making the decisions in that building, they weren't really interested in the splashiest guy. They weren't really interested in like what's going to move the needle the most. They were more so interested in what's going to be the best for this program long-term moving forward. What's going to get us to where we want to be. And look, man, I understand that Ward Manuel has been in the crosshairs for a lot of people. I feel like when you look at some of the hires he's made outside of the football stuff, but when you look at what's gone on elsewhere, I think that this is another home run hire to me for Ward Manuel. Think of him what you will, but I think they got it right this time. I think it's a really solid hire.
What grade do you give Ward on this? It's not just the hire, the whole process. So what grade do you give him from the day that Sharon left? Because he had to fire him, right? So from that day forward, what grade do you give him?
I mean, I'll give him a solid B because I think the hiring is a solid hire. I think one of the things that was probably the most disappointing is that we really didn't hear from him throughout this whole process. To my knowledge, Ward Manuel has he issued any sort of public statement since the firing of Sharon Moore? Has he said anything publicly? Now, maybe his hands are a bit tied with the internal investigation, which, by the way, is going to be made public, I think, in the middle of January. Michigan also going to be hiring a new president at that point. That's courtesy of John U. Bacon and his sourcing of information there. But yeah, I mean, that's the biggest downside throughout this process is we didn't really hear from him in his own words. At some point in time, we'll probably get there, assuming that he stays in his position. But once again, I think that when you look at, some of the hires he's made elsewhere and then what they did here with the hiring of Kyle Whittingham, I think it's a home run. I think it's exactly what this program needs. We can sit back and we can talk all day long about shoulda, coulda, woulda, and maybe they should have targeted this guy or should have targeted this guy. But as we sit here today and I look at Kyle Whittingham as the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines, Jared, I'm having a hard time finding a better pairing of two things at like Whittingham at the tail end of his career and with all of his success and experience in Michigan, this program that's a rudderless ship, desperately needing some real leadership and guidance in that building. It just feels like a perfect match, man. I don't know how else to put it.
I don't think that I'm upset that we didn't hear from Ward. I think it was great that they kind of kept the lid on this thing, and it was, you know what I mean? There wasn't a bunch of leaks and nonsense. I mean, the media was just grasping and guessing. Everybody was, right? Apparently Dillingham never even got an offer, but he was like the number one candidate for week. You know what I mean? So I think I like how he handled it, man. Quiet, went about his business, did what he had to do. The hire fits exactly what the interim president released in that video statement, right? Who they want to find. If you go back and listen to what the president says and look at Whittingham, you're like, well, that's the guy. You called him out. So I think it was a great all around. I want to keep Tony Alford. It sounds like that's going to be a good thing that they're going to do, right? Bryce has released some Instagram photos supporting the coach. Carter Meadows came out and said, I already know who this guy is. We're happy about it. Yeah. Savion seems to be saying good things. So, I mean, man, we could have went from like ultimate disaster, right? Lose everybody, all this. And it looks like now we're trending towards not bad. We've lost a couple of recruits that, may not have probably wouldn't even have seen the field this year. Maybe Brady might have seen it, but yeah. So I think they handled it well. He might have just saved his job with this, And somebody said in the comments, it seems like the second coach he hires is the one that he's right on. So
is the one that he's right. Well, yeah. I don't know. Yes, I because he didn't hire Jim Harbaugh. That's correct. So this would technically be Ward Manuel's second hire. Jared, yeah, and you kind of referenced it there when you were speaking that it is, Whittingham is a big piece of the puzzle, but he is just a piece of the puzzle. A big part of this is going to be who he brings in on his staff, and we'll talk about that a little bit, some of the names that have emerged. And also you had mentioned about players that are leaving so far, and I think this is pretty impressive, man. When you factor in just how chaotic things were over the last couple of weeks, they've only had 3 signees who have requested out of their NLI. That's 4-star wide receiver Brady Marchese, 3-star, I think it was a defensive lineman Bear McWhorter, and then 4-star tight end Matt Ludwig. Those are the only 3 guys who requested to get out of their signing with Michigan. Everybody else sort of hung firm and they were waiting to see what Michigan was going to do. And you haven't had any guys who are actually part of the program decide to depart or enter the transfer portal, at least nobody worth noting at this point. And so I think if they're able to keep this thing together, and it seems like there's a strong case. Now, I know that there's some discussion about Andrew Marsh, and there's been some reporting that he was looking around, but the reporting also suggests that neither Marsh or Underwood or any of these other guys are really looking to leave. They're not looking for an excuse. They were just, I think where all of us were, you weren't sure what was happening with the program and where things are going. And now that things are starting to take shape, there's a lot to like about what you're hearing. One of those things when you talk about, what's Kyle Whittingham going to do, one of the names that started to surface is his offensive coordinator at Utah, Jason Beck. He's been the offensive coordinator. I think he joined Utah last year. Prior to that, he was with New Mexico. But Utah this season ranks 5th nationally in scoring with an average of 41.1 points per game. And this is worth noting because guys like Jordan Marshall and possibly Justice Haynes and Savion Hyder. It's worth noting that Utah's rushing offense ranks number 2 in the nation this season. They're averaging 269.8 yards per game. And Jason Beck has played a big role in making that happening. And he did the same thing at New Mexico. Jared, you and I were talking about that before we went live. And so if Whittingham can bring Jason Beck to Ann Arbor, that to me feels like a huge win for this offense. I'm guessing that you don't necessarily have any other name. I mean, Chip Lindsey is out. He's down with Missouri. It just feels like a natural fit for Jason Beck to make the trip with Whittingham to Ann Arbor.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think the stats are there, and then look at what we were talking about earlier before we came on. But Dampier, the quarterback, he was with him at New Mexico, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That sophomore year that he had 2,800 yards passing and 1,200 rushing, and that's just. Those are fantastic. So, if you're Bryce, you got to look at that and be like, he's going to let me loose. I know Bryce is more of a pocket guy, but go ahead. Were you going to say the stats? Was I close?
Well, I was just going to say, so Devin Dampier is the quarterback at Utah, but he was with Jason Beck at New Mexico in 2024. During his sophomore season in 2024, Dampier had 390 attempts, a completion percentage of 57.9%. So not incredibly impressive, but he threw for 2,768 yards and 12 touchdowns, which is more than you got out of Bryce Underwood this year. But I think one of the things that was really impressive is that also on the ground, Dampier ran for 1,166 yards and 19 touchdowns. So a true dual threat. I don't think we're going to see that out of Bryce Underwood in Ann Arbor.
How many touchdowns did he throw for?
He ran for 19 and he threw for 12. So, you're talking about a guy who threw for almost 3,000 yards and rushed for almost 1,200 yards in a single season. But that's what he was able to do with Jason Beck leading the way. And then he followed him from New Mexico out to Utah. His numbers came down to earth a little bit more last year. He only ran for about half the yards. He had 687 rushing yards last year, but 7 touchdowns on the ground. And I think when you're looking at the potential of this offense, Jared, to me, one of the CJ says Denard Robinson rushing numbers. I mean, that's truly what it was. Yeah. But I think a big part of this offense, in addition to not really seeing what we wanted to see through the air, was there was this belief that we weren't getting as much out of Bryce Underwood as we could as a true dual threat. There's no question that Jason Beck knows how to operate with a true dual threat quarterback. It's going to be interesting if he's the guy to see what he can unlock with a guy like Bryce Underwood, because think what you want about Underwood. There is zero question that there is way more in the tank than we got to see during his freshman year. The expectation is we're going to get to see a lot more of that as a sophomore, and I think Jason Beck's the kind of guy that can unlock it. So again, there's another reason to be excited about, in addition to the hiring of Kyle Whittingham, bringing an offensive coordinator like Jason Beck to Ann Arbor. It just seems like if there's a guy that can unlock the potential that's there, he would be one of those guys.
Yeah, 100%. And this year, his numbers went down too, because he had the guy that was rushing in front of him, the actual running back, almost had 1,000 yards. So, I mean, he had a good rusher in front of him. So if he comes to Michigan, if he comes over, he's not going to have Bryce running, for 130 yards a game, because he's going to have running backs in front of him as well. But if you can get Bryce to give you 45, 50 yards rushing a game, you know what I mean? Like, that's a couple first downs here and there. And I think it's a big deal. But yeah, I like the dude. And
it adds such a huge element to your offense when you've got a quarterback who's a true dual threat and you're a defense and you're trying to account for that. And
nightmare.
And listen, I am the biggest Denard Robinson fan out there. I would venture to say, right? I think I have often made an argument for why he's the greatest, like, pure football player to ever play at the University of Michigan, to which I get a lot of pushback on that. But numbers are numbers. Numbers are numbers. Stats are stats. You're never going to see another guy do that. But I'll say this, that if you can turn Bryce Underwood into a true dual threat and unlock his running ability, what he can do with his arm and through the passing game, I mean, I just think that makes for an incredibly dangerous offense. That's an element that Denard Robinson really didn't have when you talk about Bryce Underwood and his passing ability. And so I would be excited to see what that looks like. And we should find out here quickly in the coming days whether or not Beck is going to be joining Whittingham in Ann Arbor. Another guy that he's targeting, at least reportedly, is BYU defensive coordinator Jay Hill. He's expected to be a name of interest for the Michigan defensive coordinator job. I know that there were a lot of fans out there that were like, keep Wink Martindale, keep Wink Martindale. I'm curious, Jared, when you look at Jay Hill right now, BYU is ranked 21st nationally in scoring defense. You compare that to what we've seen from Wink Martindale now for the last 2 seasons. I mean, what's your thoughts on potentially bringing in another DC and maybe moving on from Wink Martindale?
Yeah, I'm torn on that one. I think, I mean, he's had his moments, right? He's had his shining games. That 13-10 win over Ohio State, shutting down that offense was incredible. You know what I mean? So he's done some great things, but this year it just felt like it regressed a little bit. Like, but that defensive line, I know it's not just him, but I'm open to it, right? He's not on my list of must keeps. That's how I'll say it, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I think you're seeing it in the comments here that a lot of people were excited and kind of eager for the possibility of Wink Martindale leaving last year. And then kind of, with the Ohio State game, to your point, I think he bought himself back in. But yeah, when you look at guys that were must keep on this roster, I didn't put Wink Martindale in that category. That's not to take anything away from him. Obviously, he's been doing this for a long time, but he's one of those guys that also got caught up in the Sharon Moore thing. And if you read some of the reports that came out, it was Sharon and Wink Martindale, perhaps more than anybody else, were butting heads inside of that building. And that's not to, Wink Martindale's fault. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I think when you go through something like that as a coordinator and you're in that environment, sometimes it's best for everybody to just kind of like figure out a new place to start, even for Wink Martindale, right? Right. Couldn't have been a fun experience for Wink Martindale going through that. And I think for Kyle Whittingham, bringing in a new defensive coordinator wouldn't necessarily be the best thing in the world. But Jared, when we do talk about guys that were like absolutely must have, there was some talk about Biff Poggi. We'll get to that after we talk about this first guy here. But it sounds like, based on the early reporting, that Tony Alford is going to be a high priority to keep on staff here, at least from what I read last night. Jared, quick thoughts on that? Tony Alford remaining with this program as the running backs coach?
Oh, big fan. Hopefully, I want him to bring Haynes back, keeps Hyder, Marshall. I mean, I would love to see that running back room with those three players next year. Like, I think that would be incredible. And I think our only shot in hell of doing that was to keep him. And obviously he's proven himself, right? What was all the talk from Ohio State? Oh, he'll never be able to recruit. You guys took a bag of trash from us, all this nonsense, right? And all he's done is establish probably one of the most dominant, consistent rushing offenses in the Big Ten, maybe the nation sometimes, and then brought in the top running back. So he can recruit and he can build these. Like, what do you want? He bringing in Justice Haynes from Alabama. That's a recruit too. That's a recruiting win in my eyes, So
a huge win. Yeah, right.
God, imagine if he just, I know the season's not even over and you're not supposed to say imagine, but imagine if he had never gotten hurt this year. I think Michigan's just a different team, man. If he was healthy the whole way through the year.
Well, there's a lot that you could say about this program. I mean, this team went 9-3 with, a Heisman contender running back who went down and a head coach who was part-time at best. And so, yeah, I mean, imagine if all of those things had been working, what this team could have done. Would Michigan, you get a win on the road early against Oklahoma, maybe? Are you able to get the win on the road against USC? I think that you could make strong arguments that would have been possible, but it just goes to show that, like, even with all of that dysfunction that was taking place within the building, this was a solid team that was capable of doing more. And if you have the right guy in place, you can get that out of them. And I think Kyle Whittingham is the right guy. And when you you're able to retain guys like a Tony Alford and you bring in another offensive coordinator like a Jason Beck, I think once you start to see all these pieces fall into place, man, it's hard not to feel real optimistic as of today about the direction of this program, and Kyle Whittingham being the guy is a big part of that. I do want to talk about the Biff Poggi thing, because at one point in time, he was somebody that was being considered for the position as head coach. He had a lot of guys that were coming out and advocating for him. I think Devin Gardner was one of those guys, if I'm not mistaken. I don't want to... Was Devin Gardner? Yes, Devin Gardner for sure was advocating for it. Jake Butt was advocating for it. You had some former players that were advocating for it. Hell, you had Marlon Klein, Michigan's starting tight end and team captain, come out and say, I think it should be Biff Poggi.
Who could return.
Who could return, correct? Yep. And there's some reporting that I think Biff Poggi's conduct in terms of the interviews he was doing and the things he was saying and his appearance on this Texas podcast with Mac Brown, where he's talking about we could have a lot more opt-outs and we're not really sure who's going to return, and guys are going to make business decisions. There's at least some belief in some reporting that Biff Poggi kind of went rogue on some of the things he was saying, and that his comments publicly really put Michigan in a position to where they had to speed up this process and name somebody. I guess, when it comes to Biff Poggi, he was one of those names that we said, like, this is a guy you got to keep in the program. He's absolutely got to stay in the program. Has the last week really changed anything for you in terms of how you view him and whether or not he should be in the program?
No. Biff Poggi's just, I mean, he's a smart dude, right? Like, people might think he went rogue with some of the comments he was saying, but I don't think he did. I think he was protecting the kids, because he was basically saying, like, they're telling us that we can't sign players, we can't talk business because we don't have a coach. And if this continues, 25 players are going to leave. He probably just picked an arbitrary number, and then that might have sped the administration up. And that's a good thing, right? Because now we can negotiate with these kids. The portal's going to open. We got a coach in place for the portal. The portal, kids know who's going to be in charge. So I think Biff just was smart and calling it like he sees it. Like, shit, I don't even want to be the head coach if I have to come back and there's no players.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, so you got to keep him. I think you still got to keep him.
Travis from the Facebook page says y'all need to chill in the Biff glazing. I think he means on the Biff glazing. CJ Frazier says, I went against Biff getting the job and had to fight for my life in the comment section on this page. Ralph Lewis from the Facebook page says maybe Biff did it on purpose. Here's kind of where I'm at on this Biff Poggi thing. I understand that, when you listen to him come out and talk and say some things, there are a lot of people that were like, well, why is he on a Texas podcast? Why is he going on a Texas podcast? I mean, it's Matt Brown's podcast, and Biff Poggi is a coach, and they're getting ready to play Texas. And I think Biff Poggi is a guy that likes to talk football and has connections in the football world. I don't think that there was anything nefarious about that. But here's the thing that I think people struggle with the most about Biff Poggi is that they're so used to and programmed coaches who live in coach speak, who don't ever say anything real when they get on the microphone or when they're in front of the media. They give you very vague answers at best. They don't really address anything directly. And most of the time they give you some sort of non-answer and they pivot the conversation somewhere else. Biff Poggi, for better or worse, is a guy that when he gets in front of you or when he gets on the microphone, he's going to say some real shit. And sometimes you're going to like what he says and sometimes you're not going to like what he says. But at the very least, that whatever he's saying is genuinely how he feels about the situation. And so I think people aren't used to that, but I think that there's a ton of value in that. And I think that if there's one reason why Biff Poggi has a lot of buy-in from some of the players and the family and other people that came out and spoke in favor of him, Kirk Herbstreit was another guy who came out and said, gave quite a few compliments to Biff Poggi. I think the reason is because he's an honest guy who's going to shoot you straight. And that kind of is what it is. And sometimes that's going to rub people the wrong way. But in terms of, keeping him in the program, I'm not against it. I'll put it that way. I'm not necessarily against it. I think it's an overall positive for the program. But if Whittingham decides, hey, we're going to go in another direction, then I'm fine with that too. To me, it really just boils down to one guy who was on staff that I feel like you absolutely have to keep, and it's Tony Alford. And once you get behind Alford, to me, it's kind of like if you got to go in a different direction, you go in a different direction. I don't view anybody in that light.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess you backed off a little bit. That's fair.
I did back off a little bit only because I don't know. I'm excited. Like I think a lot of people out there, I'm excited for change. I'm excited for fresh blood and new people to come in. And I guess I'm at a point where I trust a guy like Kyle Whittingham to make the right decisions. That's kind of where I'm at. And if Kyle Whittingham is in a position where he feels like, no, I'd like to go in a different direction,
you're good.
I would buy into it. I'm good with it. That's where I'm at.
You think those two would butt heads though? You got the coach that's old school, like he's the boss. Then you got the guy who just likes to tell the truth and talk shit all the time, drives around in a Rolls Royce. You know what I mean? Like
could be.
Two totally different
that
people.
Too. You've got Kyle Whittingham rolling in on a Harley, and you've got Biff Poggi coming in on his Rolls Royce. And it's like I don't know. Do those worlds mesh? Probably. I'm sure there's a way, but. Yeah, I don't know. That is going to be one of the most intriguing things about this, and honestly, one of the most exciting things, because I feel no matter which direction this goes, I just have this sense of confidence that this coaching staff is going to be significantly better than what it was, and all that's going to mean is success for the football program moving forward, and that excites me.
Do you still want Whittingham to hire a quarterback coach for Bryce?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really. I don't know that much about Jason Beck in terms of his ability to work with a quarterback and what that looks like. But listen, I don't think that there's anything wrong with getting a dedicated quarterbacks coach. I think what we've learned in this process is that Sharon Moore, for whatever reason, well, not for whatever reason, we know the reason, completely dropped the ball on that. And Chip Lindsey, might have been a good offensive coordinator, but he wasn't that great of a quarterbacks coach. And people want to point to the Drake May thing and some of the other stuff. Like, okay, whatever. But the proof is in the pudding. And I didn't really see any progress with Bryce Underwood from week 1 to week 12. I don't necessarily put that on Underwood. I think that it's the job of the guys that are around him to develop him and mold him to where you see steady progression throughout the year. And unfortunately, when you get into that Oklahoma game, like take week 1 out of it because, against New Mexico, like anybody's going to look good against New Mexico, but take, the Oklahoma game and then go all the way to the Ohio State game. And I just don't know that there was really you could look at those 2 games and say, okay, wow, he was significantly better against Ohio State. And so, bringing in a quarterbacks coach, do whatever you've got to do to surround that kid with as many resources as possible to get the most out of him. That's where I
agree. And like we've talked before, the quarterback coach is there for the fundamentals, for the arm, the placement, his footwork and stuff like that. Right. I think everybody has those. I'm shocked that we didn't do this. And now we get why, but we didn't do this when we got the number 1 quarterback in the country. Like, first thing you do, let's get somebody who can help this kid advance from that level of high school to this level of Big Ten Division I football, which is vastly different, right? Everything speeds up. You got to be mechanically sound. And they did nothing. Maybe he should, if Sharon was DMing some quarterback coaches, we might have won some more games. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying.
He was DM.
Maybe follow some more quarterback coaches and less OnlyFans models. I don't know.
Oh my God!
Man.
I can't stress enough how happy I am that we hired a guy like Kyle Whittingham. It's just there is no concern about any of that stuff, and it's just wild to me that that's what was going on in the building. And I think that's one of the reasons why, when you hear reports about guys, potentially entering the transfer portal or who's Michigan. Let me say this. I hope that Michigan retains every single player on the roster. I hope that Kyle Whittingham is able to keep every single guy that's there, particularly the marquee guys, the guys who are core guys, the guys who are going to play a big role in the success of this program next year. With that being said, though, if Michigan does lose those guys, to me, so be it. I think it's a worthwhile price to pay to have a guy like Whittingham in your building and putting the program back on track. And I don't doubt that if some guys, and I'm not going to speculate on names, but if some guys decide, hey, I'm going to enter the transfer portal, I also don't blame them because I feel like they've been shortchanged over the last 2 years with a guy running the program who clearly wasn't qualified to do it. And there's no question that Sharon Moore invited these parents into his office, went into the homes of people, and said some shit that he didn't fully believe and wasn't willing to live up to. And so if you feel betrayed by that, if you feel burned by that, if you feel like you didn't get developed the way you were supposed to get developed, and you put that on a head coach who was a part-time head coach, I sympathize with that. I can understand that. And if you feel like another place for you is the best thing to do, there's no hate from my side. No, but at the end of the day, I think that whatever losses you face are not going to be on Kyle Whittingham. That's what I want to make clear. I don't know that Michigan's going to be able to retain everybody, but if they don't, that's not on Kyle Whittingham. That's on Sharon Moore. That's on the people that put him in place. That's on failed leadership. And I think that if you do lose those guys again, it's a worthwhile price to have to pay to get the right guy in the building and to put your program on the right track.
Yeah, I saw somebody post something on social media that said that if you get a bunch of transfers, you're gonna know that the culture that was created when Harbaugh was there, that was handed to Sharon Moore, is not as strong as it was, right? Like Sharon damaged that culture because back then they were convinced that you come to Michigan to be, come to Michigan, right? They weren't doing the NIL stuff the way everybody was to begin with. But I hear you. I hope that they get a chance to talk, or they give the new coach an opportunity to speak, right? Because everything that was wrong, he does great, right? His leadership and all those things, and organization. And I heard somebody else said talked about his practices are insanely organized, right? And I've been to a couple Michigan practices when Jim Harbaugh was there, and it was like clockwork. It was wild just watching. A couple blows of the whistle, everybody knew where they were going. You know what I mean? It was very organized. I went to a Sharon Moore one, and it was a little bit more laid back, and it seemed a little chill in terms of how things were operating. And he seemed to be focused very much on the offensive line when I watched. But yeah, so I mean, hopefully they'll talk to this guy and the parents can, say, hey, this is a guy that I trust my kids with. The parents got a big role in it too, so.
Yeah. And honestly, I think this whole period of time is, you can look at it as like an awful thing and, a terrible thing that happened for the program. And there's no doubt that what went down is not ideal. But I also know that it also creates an incredible opportunity for the guys that are there and want to be there. And I go back to prior to that 2021 season, the stories that we heard about guys like Aiden Hutchinson and Josh Ross coming together, holding a players only meeting. It was after that brutal 2020 season and saying, something to the effect of, we're not doing this again, right? We're going to win a championship here. We are going to change the culture. We are going to hold everybody accountable. Like those player meetings, that was what changed the trajectory of the program. I know that Jim Harbaugh people want to give Harbaugh a lot of credit for that. And, he deserves some credit for that, but really the change of, the course in this program came from the players in the building who decided, no, we expect more. We're going to demand more, and we're going to hold each other accountable. And I think that when you go through something like this, if you've got the right guys in the building, some guys in that building are going to see it as like a reason to leave, a reason to quit, a reason to give up. And like I said, I'm not necessarily going to blame them if they choose to make that decision. But there are guys on this roster that are going to use this as an opportunity to assert themselves as leaders and potentially be like the linchpins in why Michigan goes on another incredible run in the next few years with Kyle Whittingham leading the way. And so that's how I would look at it. That's how I would sell it if you're Kyle Whittingham or anybody else in that building. Like, you have an incredible opportunity here to do something special. And I think that with the history of the program, with the other resources that are there, with a guy like Whittingham in the building and the way that he can sell himself, I think that there's a lot of guys that are going to spend a few minutes around him and say, you know what, that's a head coach that I want to play for. I mean, Jared, when you hear a guy like this, what are your thoughts?
Well, tomorrow I'm going to be spread eagle on the couch, laying there just watching college football and seeing what happens. Maybe clothed, maybe not clothed. I don't know.
In his own words. God, dang it, man. He is a freak. Why do we keep hiring a freak?
No.
He's going to be butt naked on the couch, spread eagle.
He's one of us. That's right. He's one of us.
You lay on your couch butt naked.
Well, not when the children are around, but whomst amongst us has not wanted to sit spread eagle on the couch, maybe naked, maybe not, watching college football? I mean, that's what this guy's all about. So
it's such an odd. That's a hard sell, my friend. But okay, that's why we want.
Overall point being, the guy's got personality. I know he's a little bit on the older side, but I think that he will be able to connect with the players. I think they're going to be excited to want to play for him, and his track record is proven. His history is proven, and I think that guys will be it'll be a smart and wise decision to want to remain with this program and see it through, because I think it's going to lead to a lot of good things.
Hey, I want to interject something real quick. I did look up. So he did sign 2 top 100 players in the 26 class, and one is offensive tackle, which we could certainly take, and then another one was a cornerback.
Yeah.
2 top 100 guys. So, because you got to remember now, Utah kids can transfer too, and we'll see you might see a little bit about the loyalty that those players had towards him too, right? Like,
I don't think there's any question. You're going to see some. I mean, you're going to see. Yeah. I would be shocked if you didn't see any Utah guys make the move.
That might be scary, right? Nobody wanted to go with this guy.
The only reason I could see was because, I don't know, maybe if you're local to the Utah, I don't know, man. I feel like you're going to get some Utah guys that,
and the Michigan NIL machine is going to reach out to him. He's going to ask him, "Hey, which players do you want us to hit up?"
Well,
the coach is going to say, "They ain't getting shit at Utah."
Think about it, man. You're a player out there at Utah. You're not getting really a lot of the shine on a national stage. Here you have the opportunity to potentially transfer to the University of Michigan, to your point, Jared, with all that NIL money in place, but you get to play on such a massive stage, and you get to play against, Oregon and USC and Oklahoma and Ohio State. And you really get to figure out, am I built for this? And you have the opportunity to make a name for yourself in terms of whether or not you're ready to play at the next level. And so I think for a lot of those guys, it's going to be incredibly appealing. I'm certain that there's going to be some other Utah guys that come over with him. Let's just get into some of the comments here, comments or questions, since we've had a lot coming in. I'm going back to Almost the beginning here. Eric Ridley from the Facebook page says age is just a number. You know what, Eric? I agree with you. Age is just a number. You know,
Okay, Aaliyah.
would you like it to be a little bit lower? Sure, but it is what it is, man. There's some 40-year-olds that are dipshit head coaches and wouldn't be a good fit here. So I'm it's to me that piece. I'm not really hung up on it, man. You want 5 years out of this guy, 5-6 years maybe out of this guy. And I think his successor at some point is going to be on staff. Maybe it is a Jason Beck type guy. I don't know, but I feel like he's going to do things the right way and put the right people in place. Let's see here.
You got a YouTube one at 12:40. Where are you at?
Well, I went back to 12:05. So I'm just scanning.
Okay.
See if we've got any
like a paid YouTube one at 12:44.
A paid YouTube one at 12:44. Oh, by the way. Listen, hold on. Let's go to it.
It looked like to me.
Wow. Okay, here. Listen. So we have turned this on for anybody who's watching on Facebook. I won't be all that angry if you flip on over to YouTube, because we just got to the point right now where the audience is big enough and the action is big enough to where if you want to pay, if you want to donate, I don't run a paid site. There's no paywall for anything, right? Like, it's just, if you guys want to donate to the cause, the Winged Helmet Media cause, and help us out here in our continued journey and efforts to be able to do this, would be greatly appreciated. Like AJ Cooper from the YouTube page, who threw in $2, and he says, Cam Calhoun return was a defensive back for the Wolverines. Did he transfer out to Utah? Is that where he went?
No, I thought, yeah, you're right. And then now he's in Alabama, though. So he ain't leaving Alabama to come back to Michigan. So
yeah,
it'd be Michigan, Utah, Alabama, Michigan. I mean, he already left Utah. You know what I mean? So I don't think that's a good point. Already left Michigan, already left Utah. Yeah, I don't know if there's a return on that, especially if he's down in Bama. I'll take it.
Potentially, Keon Sabb was one of those guys that, you lost in the secondary that you'd like to get back. But yeah, I don't see any sort of return for a Cam Calhoun in the secondary, unfortunately.
And his stats for 2025, I mean, we could have used them. 2 tackles, 1 pass defended.
There you go.
He could have knocked down one of those passes.
But I appreciate the $2.
Yeah.
That's very helpful. And again, anybody that wants to hop over to YouTube and contribute to the cause, it would be greatly, greatly appreciated here. Let's go back to the YouTube page. I've seen this.
No, I wanted to reply to this. Thank you for bringing.
Okay.
I wasn't saying that.
I'm not going to read the name. This is the problem with the YouTube.
Colonel Ingus.
Colonel Ingus 69. Everybody should have to use their damn name and their actual picture. I'm tired of this anonymous stuff. I gotta say, Colonel Angus 69 from the YouTube page says, Jared.
It's on purpose. They're doing it on purpose.
Jared, are you saying the running game was trash when Alfred arrived? It was one of the best in the country before he arrived. No, Jared, are you saying the Michigan running game was trash?
When he left Ohio State, the Ohio State people said he doesn't know how to run a running back room. He doesn't know how to recruit, all this shit. You took a weight away from us. I wasn't saying that he made our running game. It was already solid, but he maintained it, right? There wasn't that fall off that Ohio State said, your running game's going to go to shit. You're not going to be able to recruit. And he proved all those things wrong. So I appreciate that clarification, Colonel Ingus.
Don't forget the
69. Colonel Ingus. Colonel _ Ingus 69. Sorry, we got to start saying the underscores and shit too now.
Yeah,
and you're doing better this week though. Remember the question we got last week?
I do remember that.
I said 100 times, my friend. 100 times.
Stefan Hennel from the Facebook page. See, now I'm starting to get the names wrong, I think. He says, the Utah running back also wants to come. We will have room. Good problem to have. Jared, you had mentioned him before we went live talking about Utah's running back. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts about him also making the transfer to Michigan? Steven says that we will have room. I'm not so sure about that. What are your thoughts?
If I'm him or if I'm advising him, what's his name? Wayshawn Parker. So he's a transfer there from, is that who it is? Yeah, from Washington State. So he already transferred once. I wouldn't go to Michigan. Would you go there? I mean, you would because you were an athlete and you had 2 numbers in high school. But
because I'd be on the
regular,
sure.
Regular old me. No, I wouldn't go. I don't think we need him for running backs. Who knows? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and again, Justice Haynes is going to be one of those where you're waiting to see what happens. But even then, I mean, you've got Jasper Parker in there. You're going to have Savion Hyder in there. Jasper Parker was getting some decent reps down the stretch when Justice Haynes got injured and Jordan Marshall was dealing with an injury. Yeah, I don't know, man. A big part of that's going to be what Justice Haynes decides to do. But let's say he does come back. If you've got Justice Haynes, Jordan Marshall, Savion Hyder, and you're trying to include Jasper Parker into that, I mean, I just think it's a deep room.
If you don't have Justice Haynes back, I would take that kid 100%.
There you go. Yeah.
Because I mean, he's a sophomore. He's 5'10", 210. I mean, dude, good.
And we found out this year that like having a lot of depth in that room is something that you absolutely need, especially when you get down the stretch and you've got your top two guys banged up. Obviously, you hope that doesn't happen next year, but it never hurts to be able to share the rock for at least the first 6-7 weeks.
Yeah.
Damn it, I did it.
6 or 7. And Savion is a freshman, regardless of what we think. We went through this with Bryce this year, right? We thought here comes Tom Brady. No, he's a freshman. Savion's a freshman. So that's actually very smart. Taking that kid from Utah if we don't get Haynes back.
Yeah. Josh Dowell from the Facebook page says USC beat our ass. That was a game we weren't going to win. The game plan was atrocious. Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of people thought the same thing about the Oklahoma game as well. You just kind of like into the second half, it felt like against Oklahoma, Michigan had a chance if they could just do something offensively, and nothing kept happening. And, we saw a lot of the same thing with USC. They got a little bit of firepower late. I think Andrew Marsh had a long touchdown reception, but yeah.
They were talking about there. He's talking about your comment that if we'd had, who knows what those two games would have been like if we had Justice Haynes. That's what that.
Well, no, not just Justice Haynes. I'm talking about who knows what those games would have been like if you have Justice Haynes, if you have a head coach who's locked in, if you've got a game plan that can work, if you have people around that are competent. That's what I'm saying. Like
that's why it all makes sense now. You think about what the people were complaining about, and some of the players were saying they go all week building this game plan, and the coach is half in, half out, and then the game time comes and he doesn't like something, so he just takes over and starts making calls. You know what I mean? Has no idea what the hell was going on, and now everybody's discombobulated and confused. Like this dude, you know what I mean?
There's no way that the game plan that we saw executed against Ohio State was the one that they spent an entire week planning. I find that very hard to believe. And again, now in
hindsight, you see why.
You see why.
Yeah,
reportedly why players were pissed off when they were leaving the field, that they felt like they didn't do what they were planning to do all week long. And so we'll find out. We will find out as we get into the next season. I think, again, there's another thing to love about this roster is it was so young. There were so many young guys. We talked about the youngest roster in the Big Ten. So many young guys were getting critical reps down the stretch and in big games. Well, that's all going to be returned experience, assuming that Whittingham can hold on to these guys. But if you have all that young returning experience coming back to Michigan in 2026, you put the right staff around these guys and you start to think about, well, what should the expectations be for next year? Jared, we talked about this even when things were in limbo. Like when Sharon Moore was still there, the expectation was it was playoff or bust for this football program. And I don't know that given anything that's happened over the last 2 weeks that my expectation has changed. I still think as I sit here today, it is playoff or bust for the Michigan Wolverines. And that's going to be the case every single year they take the field for me. That's where this program is at now. When you look at the resources, when you look at everything it has at its disposal. And I think if you're Kyle Whittingham, there's a lot of guys who aren't built for that kind of pressure cooker. Kenny Dillingham might be one of those guys where the pressure in Ann Arbor it's nice out there at Arizona State, right? You don't got to make the college football playoff every single year. People aren't going to necessarily be calling for your job. Like you went to school there, your family's there, you're kind of this young, like bro type guy, and they all love you. You come to Ann Arbor and none of that shit matters. The only thing they care about in Ann Arbor is, are you winning football games and are you getting in the college football playoff? And if you're not doing that, I've said this before, you've got like 3 years max. And if you're not doing that and you're not beating Ohio State along the way, people are going to be asking for somebody else. And there's not a lot of guys that are built for that. I think Whittingham is 100% built for that.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Let's see. Chris,
as it sits right now, like you said, we don't know who's going to leave.
Herbert from the Facebook page says mediocrity incoming. Maybe
he was talking about me and you. He's right.
Yeah. If it relates to us in the show, there's no question.
Start of the show, he said mediocrity incoming. And I was like, damn, predicted our whole damn show. How did he do that?
Eric Tolbert from the Facebook page says Biff is that person you have to tell him he's on speakerphone when you call him. Yeah, for sure. Because he's going to say some real shit that gets you in trouble. Matthew Schmiegi from the Facebook page says, I heard on a different podcast. Okay, number one, we don't listen to different podcasts around here.
What different podcast is there?
I'm not really sure, but he says, I heard on a different podcast that Biff is likely to be asked to step down from interim because boosters are so upset with his Texas podcast quotes. I have not heard that. I do not listen to other podcasts, but Jared, I guess, I don't know, thoughts on the potential if this is an idea that's being floated around that maybe, I mean, do you think he said anything in those podcasts that would really piss off the boosters so much that would he be asked to step down?
I don't think it was that egregious what he said. He didn't say anything that was derogatory towards the boosters. I mean, if you read into what his comments were, he's basically saying, hey, we need to get a head coach in place so that we can make business deals with these kids and get everything set for the roster for next year, get ready for the transfer portal. I mean, the bottom line is there's a dollar figure in this NIL game, right? If it's 50 million or whatever, they need to figure out who's getting what on the roster. What do we have left, to go after spots that we want to fill? That's all he said. The boosters weren't being handicapped to do that. It was the coaching hire. And so I don't think so. And I also believe that, like you and I talked before, this guy's coming in. He's the head football coach. So I doubt his thing was, yeah, I'll come be the head coach, but you guys can hire and fire people before I get there. No, I'm the head coach now. I'll make the decision on who stays, who goes. It's going to be my football program. He's a 66-year-old man, not a 35-year-old man, right? Who could probably get pushed around a little bit. You ain't pushing this dude around. He's going to come in, take the program, fix it.
Yeah, I can see why. I can see why on the surface why Biff's comments rubbed some people the wrong way. And I think there were a lot of people that were really hung up on the fact that it was like a Texas podcast. Like if he had been saying the same shit that he said on Jake Butt's podcast and having a conversation with him, I don't think people would have had an issue with it. But again, I think the real issue people are having is they say they want real talk from somebody and then they get real talk and they're like offended by it. It's like, you're telling your spouse like, okay, I just want you to be honest with me. I want you to be honest with me. And then when they say you look fat in those jeans, it's like, you're all offended. It's like, you can't have it both ways. You either want the honesty or you don't want the honesty. And a lot of people just don't want the honesty.
Yeah. Certain people you can't say that to, though. They're fat in those jeans. You got to be careful with that.
Certain people. I mean, if somebody told me I looked fat in my jeans, I'd have to go away for like a week. I wouldn't
stop looking at my ass. You fucking.
Matt Carrier from the Facebook page says, I'm tired of the age excuses. Whittingham is a great dude with a ton of experience. Can't wait for the Harley rides to the big house. Yeah.
He's riding on the Harley with the coach. Who is this Matt Carrier guy?
What the sidecar? That'd be incredible.
That's incredible, Matt Carrier. DM us later.
I do agree. The age thing, I'm not nearly as hung up on that as a lot of people seem to be. I'm excited for what he brings to the table, the experience, the no BS stuff. Like, I just think that's everything that Michigan needs at this moment. Let's go through. Rico says he's sick of disgusting ageism. Yes, I am right there with you. We have not had any bald slander in the chat today, which I'm excited about. But listen, in that way, I guess me and Kyle Whittingham are probably like kindred spirits, right? People are on him about his age. People are on me about being bald. It's like we've got to fight back against the narrative constantly.
I don't have any issues. People just like me, I guess. I don't. Nobody makes fun of me about anything. It's a great life.
Looking for more questions here. Is that out already? I had the question about Sharon Moore, but I'm not going to read that one.
Why is it not good?
Now
we want to see it.
I think we just got to move on. It happened. It is what it is.
Question.
And I also want to make sure I read these before I put them up because I don't
want to just freestyle like last
week. Do you think I should just freestyle the questions? Okay.
Throw it up there. Okay.
This is from CQV1013. I don't know if I got that right from the YouTube page. It says, why did so many people want Biff? And do you think he said what he said on the Texas podcast because he knew he wasn't getting the job? Great show, guys. Well, I appreciate the compliment on the show.
Nailed that.
I think people wanted Biff because, when you go back to the season, the regular season, and the two games where Sharon Moore was absent, we saw a Michigan team that looked really good. Now, granted, it was against Central Michigan and Nebraska. That road game against Nebraska, everybody thought that was going to be a big deal. It turns out Nebraska wasn't nearly as good as we all thought they were going to be. But everybody was looking at those two games as like proof that Biff Poggi, if he was given the opportunity, that this program would be better off as opposed to Sharon Moore. I don't think that there's any debate. If it was a Sharon Moore, Biff Poggi thing, I think you're going Biff Poggi every day of the week at this point. But that was why people wanted Biff, in addition to the fact that he's a highly thought of guy. There were people around the program that had nothing but good things to say. He's just viewed as a glue guy. And so I think that was why people wanted Biff. And I think the overall belief was that if you retained Biff, it would give you the best opportunity to keep what was left of the roster together. Yeah. I don't necessarily think that. Jared, this other point of his question here, I guess his or her question here, do you think Biff said what he said on the Texas podcast because he knew he wasn't going to get the job?
No, Biff does not strike me as a dude that would do anything out of malice towards this program. I feel like he really, truly loves the program, loves the environment, loves everything about being there. I mean, he doesn't have to be there, right? I mean, dude's got hundreds of millions of dollars. He could be anywhere doing anything, and he's here at Michigan dealing with all this bullshit. So I doubt. No, he's like you said, he's just a real dude. Says what he has to say,
Yeah,
you ask a question, you're gonna get an answer. You're not gonna get a runaround. You and I have sat in those press conferences before, and somebody asks a question, the coach will talk for like 4 minutes, and you'll look at each other like he didn't say anything.
Jim Harbaugh was like he was a master at that. You would ask him like a question.
Like what question did I?
You'd ask him a question about the game plan, and then it would all of a sudden turn into like this series of he's just listing off players' names, and he's going like 25 deep into the roster, and it's like
the whole team.
How did we get there? But he was really good at just you take your question and then he would just steer it where he wanted to go. Yeah, I don't think there was an alternative motive from Biff Poggi there. I think he was asked a question. I think he started talking, and I think he was just saying whatever he wanted to say and whatever he felt about the situation. And some people liked it, some people didn't. But I think it was genuinely how he felt, and I think you can't fault the guy, especially in this day and age, for being honest about how he feels and saying some real shit. Shane from the Facebook page says, even if some current players decide to leave, I feel very confident in Coach Whittingham adding the key pieces needed to replace them in the portal. That's a big part of this too. Like there may be some guys that are currently on the roster that think, you know what, like it didn't go the way I think it was going to go. Maybe there's some people that came here for Sharon Moore, although I highly doubt that at this point. But for whatever reason, sure, you're going to lose some people. I don't doubt that the hiring of Kyle Whittingham for sure is going to make now, if you bring Jason Beck as the offensive coordinator, I don't doubt that there are going to be some high-profile guys in the transfer portal that are looking at Michigan as a much more favorable destination than they would have if Sharon Moore had remained in place, I guess. So, Shane, to your comment here, I absolutely agree with you. Jared, I'll ask you, in terms of Michigan being able to go out and land, high-caliber guys out of the transfer portal, do you think the addition of Kyle Whittingham versus where they were at with Sharon Moore, do you think that puts them in a better position to be able to do that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he had 100. I just looked it up. He's had over 120 players make it to the NFL out of Utah, right? So that's, I mean, I know we have bigger numbers here in Michigan, Ohio State areas, but that's Utah. So, and yeah, he's going to be able to go in and say, here's what we can do. Offensively, which is what we need, receivers, we score 41 points a game, right? The quarterback's going to throw the ball couple 300 times a game. We're going to run, so you guys can't get doubled if he gets an elite receiver, because people don't think about that, and receivers don't think about that. I think at this level, like maybe Michigan doesn't throw as much. I think they're going to get better, but when you have a good running game, they can't double you because they got to have people up to protect against the run. You know what I mean? So that play action becomes so much stronger, and you get one-on-ones as a receiver. So I think he's got some things he can sell. If he gets a good new young offensive coordinator, if he moves on defensively, I think he's got some people that understand the portal. And yeah, I feel like we're in a better spot, 100% going into the portal, especially now that, he's hired a week in advance,
Yeah, and we've got some, small news coming in on the live podcast, so I'm trying to just read through it and make sure we can keep people updated. So Michigan quarterback Bryce Underwood, meeting with the media today during bowl practice, says he's excited by the hire of Kyle Whittingham, and so it seems like he's pretty pleased with what's going on so far. And then another big part of this is people were wondering who was going to make the trip down to Orlando. Other than the three guys who opted out, which is Jayshon Barham, Derek Moore, and who was the other guy that opted out?
Was it Hadi? No, I don't.
Gio, yeah, it was Gio El-Hadi. So other than El-Hadi, Barham, and Derek Moore, everybody
all makes sense.
Yep. Everybody else is in Orlando and accounted for. So if you were wondering who was going to make the trip and who's participating in bowl practice, everybody except those 3 guys are down there. So once again, it's a testament to just the guys in that building being able to keep things together. Everything didn't come apart. Everything didn't unravel. So that means guys like Andrew Marsh are down there, Bryce Underwood, obviously.
And they're practicing, right?
And they're practicing and they're working through this. Right. And
that's what matters, because they don't want to get hurt, right? If you know you're leaving, you ain't on that practice field.
Sure.
The portal opens in what, 6 days or whatever, 5 days. You're not on that practice field. You're chilling. You're fielding offers for how much money you're going to get to the next place. So if they're all on that field, that's impressive. And the coach is coming, right? So
I was going to say another big part of that is, every player that's down in Orlando is going to have the opportunity to meet with Kyle Whittingham face to face. And like I said earlier in the show, I think that
that's awesome.
I think that these guys got kind of used to the way things looked and operated under Sharon Moore, and they might not have been all that thrilled with it. I think when they get in a room with Kyle Whittingham and they hear what he's all about and they get to learn a little bit more about him, I'm just going to go out on a limb here. I could be proven wrong here in the coming days, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the guys that are in that building, the guys that truly matter, the key pieces of this, are going to look at that and say, I want to be a part of that, and they're going to remain on the roster. So that's good news to hear down in Orlando. Everybody except the 3 opt-outs are there. Let's see here if we can get a couple more in here, as we're at 1 hour and 5 minutes. That flew by pretty quick.
The YouTube people are saying that you're being prejudiced against them again.
Am I? Well, listen.
I mean, I've kept track. I'm going to start a movement, man. These people have a valid point here.
A real easy way to get attention on the YouTube page, just throw $5 there in the chat, and that will get my attention real quick. Buy me a pizza. Buy me a beer. I don't really need pizza or a beer at this point, especially after the holidays, man. How do you do? I mean, you're a guy who's fit. How do you do during the holidays? Do you completely go off the reservation with your diet, or do you maintain a pretty strict, process?
I fast, man. So I always do my fast, which is 9 o'clock at night till noon the next day at least.
Interesting. And then you eat whatever you want between.
So usually what I'll do when I'm working, I try to do it's easier because I have kids around, I have to feed them lunch and stuff. But
yeah.
From 9 until like 5 o'clock the next day then I'll eat dinner. I'll eat from 5 to 9. That's it. That's a rough one.
That is a rough one.
But lots of water, coffee. I'll drink coffee though, water. Yeah.
Ralph Lewis asks, how is Utah's kicker? That's a good point. I mean, how's the kicker? How's the punter? I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, the punter, right? The punter.
But I would say, again, you talk about the coaching being an upgrade either way. That would probably be an upgrade. Yeah, bring the punter. I don't give a shit. It can't be worse than what it was this season. So, sure.
Yeah. 8-yard punt was awesome.
I don't know if I'm seeing any more questions here. This is one that I saw pop up quite a few times. Dave Wares from the Facebook page says, is now the perfect time to replace Mr. Brightside for the 4th quarter intro? I am amazed that this remains like a point of contention within the Michigan fan base.
The verbiage, the words, the lyrics.
Well, you know what? That is a good point.
That's what it is. It's the lyrics. They're like, should we...
Yeah. I mean, Jared, what's your thought on that? Is it time, just given the way things have happened here, to maybe retire that song and move on to something else?
I think if you talk to the students, then the time is no. They say no.
Correct.
Like my daughter goes to Michigan. I asked her what she thought about it. I was at a Michigan bar with a bunch of Michigan kids there that she knows, and they were all like, no.
Yeah,
It's our thing. Like the people that are calling for it probably have nothing to do with it. Don't even sing it when they're at the damn games, right?
Yeah,
it's the old people back to ageism, but
it is. I early on, when I first got into like the media part of this, it was one of the things that I was questioning, and I thought, I'm like, there's just no juice, there's no mojo there. Like if I'm a player and I hear that doesn't get me amped up to want to go and bust somebody's head in the 4th quarter. It's just a weird song to be playing, and I found out
like Penn State.
Well, no, but I want something just a little more.
Thick.
I don't know, a little more hardcore, a little more, I don't know, just something that's a little more energizing, I guess. But I found out really quick that, yeah, the students and the people that are a part of the Michigan Circle absolutely love it. And they were pissed off at the very suggestion that it could be something other than Mr. Brightside. So, Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's time to change it. I'll just say this, Dave. There are a lot of people who are in your camp that want to see something different. I was once there. That song kind of grew on me, though, from 21 to 23 when Michigan went on that magical run. And, it just sort of, it grew on me to the point where I said, if Michigan went to the college football playoff in 2021, I said, if this team makes the playoff, I will get part of the lyrics tattooed on my arm. And then sure as shit, Michigan went out and did it. And I followed through on that bet, Jared. And so there is a small section of those lyrics tattooed somewhere on my body. I'm not going to tell you where, but they're on there.
Good for you.
Anybody who was following the page, they know where they're at. I actually went live in the tattoo shop while they were tattooing it on there. So
good for you.
Days gone by.
I think people just like it because it's such an easy song to hear too. So when they cut the lyrics or they cut the sound and everybody's singing, you can actually hear what the crowd is saying. Because they do it at Buffalo too, at the Bills Stadium, and it's the same. You hear, like if I watch a game on TV, Buffalo's playing, they'll do it. You can hear exactly what everybody's saying. So
yeah,
I don't know.
No doubt.
That's why I like it. It's kind of cool. But there's some great ones.
CJ Frazier says he lives in Iowa. Kirk Ferentz is 70 and not. Yeah, Kirk Ferentz is one of those guys where I feel like he's going to have to, they're going to have to pull him out of the building. He seems like a guy that's going to want to coach football for as long as he possibly can. You were talking about Joe Paterno before we went live, how at one point in time they had to just be like, you can't be on the sideline anymore. We're just going to tuck you up in the box and we'll keep you up there because it was hard to watch, man. The dude was confused and lost, but he loved the game of football. So
yeah. Somebody said you have a bright side tramp stamp.
Right above the old ass crack there.
Yeah, his hands are just ruthless.
Couple of flowers, Mr. Brightside lyrics. It's really quite the piece. I'll show you sometime. Marty Moga from the Facebook page says, why do people call for a rebuild yet want all these people and coaches kept? Yeah, I think that I haven't seen anybody really honestly, Tony Alford is the only one I've seen people advocating pretty hard for. I haven't seen any other coach on staff other than some people that want Biff Poggi. I was in that camp and now I'm kind of like a take it or leave it, not because of his comments, just because it's more so a trust in Kyle Whittingham. But yeah, I agree with that, Marty, to a certain extent. I mean, if you do want a wholesale change, if you think that the program just needs to be cleared out and it's time for some new blood and new perspectives, I think that, certainly the more new coaches you can get in there, the better. But Marty, I think that there's some people on staff that I think have great relationships with recruits and current players there, and they're guys that have done their job well, despite whatever Sharon Moore was doing in that building. And I think Tony Alford's one of those guys who, what he's done since arriving at Michigan has been pretty impressive. And I know that the guys in the running back room really look up to him. And I think that's why it's paramount that you keep him.
Yep. No, I agree. Nobody's calling about a rebuild for the roster, though. I mean, you've had analysts talking about how stacked this roster is, and why coaches should want to come here. So obviously we want to keep all the talent. There's some real talent. You and I were texting, before, talking about the guys coming in and the guys you didn't even get to see this year, the Babalolas, Ty Haywood didn't get a good run. Like there's some skilled guys that are going to.
Jamar Browder, wide receiver. I mean, we talk about you need wide receivers. You got to get guys out of the portal. Like Jamar Browder is like a 6'5", 6'6" wide receiver. Didn't really touch the football or the field as a true freshman, but he's a guy that, again, if you get the right coaching around a guy like that, the right development around a guy like that, and you don't have him on the jugs machine midway through the season, teaching them the fundamentals of catching, if you get some real development for this wide receiver room, I think
bring back Marlon Klein, Andrew Marsh.
Yeah.
Go get a couple guys in the transfer. The offense is suddenly very, very formidable with that running back room. You know what I mean?
And you have a relatively young offensive line that's incredibly experienced. So there is so much to like about Michigan's potential. Now, defensively, I think there's more question marks, particularly on the defensive line. You've got to do some work in the transfer portal. But again, if you're a transfer portal guy and you're looking at the University of Michigan and you're thinking, I can go play on that D-line under Kyle Whittingham with that offense and that potential in that conference, I think Michigan is an incredibly attractive place. And I think that if they do the things the right way in the portal and they're able to retain the guys on the roster who are the key parts of this, I think this is a playoff or bust type roster. I really do. My expectation has not changed, and I don't think it should change. I know it won't change for anybody in that building.
No, I agree with you on that 100%.
This is what no, okay. So from the YouTube page, what is it? T-Real City or Trial City? I don't know. From the YouTube page says Trial City.
Trial City.
Will he, I'm guessing you're referring to, is this Whittingham or Biff Poggi that you're asking, will he coach against Texas? To my knowledge and my understanding, this is going to be Biff Poggi is going to be the interim head coach coaching for the Texas game. I know that Kyle Whittingham is going to be down there. Full disclosure, Jared, I don't know what the rules are and how this all works. I don't know that Kyle Whittingham is even able to step in. I don't think it would be a smart move, but I don't think he's able to step in at this point and just assume the role as head coach for the bowl game. Do you know how that works? Because I have
no clue how that works. The only time that I remember it really happening was when Rich Rod replaced Lloyd Carr.
Yeah,
remember they've had the game against Florida, and Rich Rod was there, and they ran a spread offense for a couple plays or something because Rich Rod was there. I don't know. I don't know what the rules are. I mean, I feel like Whittingham's a dude though that if he wanted to, he would coach. Like, if he could, he would coach.
Yeah, but I don't know. What are you gonna? You're gonna step in. You're gonna do what? You're gonna be trying to learn. Like he might. I don't know. On the sideline wearing a headset and just learning, listening,
all the ideas. Yeah, you're just not making the plays. Just say this.
I don't know. I feel like that would be way too discombobulated. I think you've kind of got to just ride out with.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to. He's not. He'll be up in the box.
Could be, or he could be on the sideline. I'd love to see him down on the sideline, interacting with the guys, having conversations with them. Maybe. I don't know, man. You
can coach up because you can coach up football without being. You're right. He could be down there teaching fundamentals. Pull the jug machine out, teach the receivers how to catch. You know what I mean? We can do some shit like that
on the sideline during the Texas game. After Samaj Morgan has a drop, he brings him over the jugs machine. He's
come on over, buddy.
Come on over here. We're gonna get you right.
He just blows up the rest of the game. Oh my god, he just didn't know how to catch.
Let's see.
Poor Samaj, dude. They're roasting Samaj in the comments still. These fans.
Are they?
Oh yeah, they were talking about him.
Well, I
didn't even bring him up. They were already talking about him. They just
I honestly can't fault anybody. I don't think that the coaching was there. So until the right coaching is in place, then I think it's fair to because Samaj as a freshman, I mean, he was a playmaker. He was a guy that as a young guy, you were like, there's a ton of potential with this kid, and then all of a sudden. This season, it just completely fell off. And I think, again, we want to talk about these guys because now they're getting paid and there's all this money involved that they should be this and they're still young guys. They're still young players. And when you don't have leadership around you and everything's just kind of willy-nilly, it just goes to show how important structure is, particularly at the collegiate level. Now, when you get to the NFL, I mean, at that point, it is a business. You are a grown-ass man, and it's your job to, handle your business, get as good as you need to get. And if you can't, your ass will be out and somebody else will be in your spot. And it's kind of like that in college to a certain extent. But a big part of this is they're still going to school. They are still developing. They are still learning and maturing and growing. And I think that that's why it's critical that you have a true general, a true leader, a true captain running your football program. And Sharon Moore is not that. Kyle Whittingham, 100%, zero questions, is that. So let's not be too hard on Samaj. Somebody said stop glazing the SEC. Last two champs are from the Big Ten. I don't know. Was anybody glazing the SEC?
I don't.
Maybe he's talking to somebody else in the comments here.
Yeah, because I sure wasn't talking about the SEC.
Yeah. Somebody has to. I'm guessing this is in relation to YouTube and being able to ask questions. Extortion. No,
What's
it's not.
What's the name?
Misanthropist? Jesus? I don't know. Please help me out here. That's part of you're part of the problem from the YouTube page. Look at this. Two questions back to back. I got Colonel Ingus 69 and Misanthropist Jesus. I skip a lot of it because I just can't read it. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Wow. There it is, Misanthropist Jesus. Well, I don't know what it means, but yeah. Okay.
I don't know either. Ralph Lewis from the Facebook page asking if Steve Kasula is out with the negative reports on him. I haven't heard that. I mean, as far as I know, he's still slated to be the offensive coordinator for the bowl game. But yeah, if you read some of the reports that came out,
jerk, huh?
Yeah, a lot of them obviously centered around Sharon Moore and the lack of leadership there. But Steve Kasula was a name that surfaced and came out a number of times as a guy who was again, this is according to the reports, was a big contributor to the negative and toxic environment within that building. I'm not going to go into specifics about that. All I'll say, Ralph, is I'm as far as I know right now, he's still going to be the offensive coordinator for the bowl game.
I don't think he lasts though.
And I don't think he's going to be one of those that carries over.
No, I don't believe so.
Tight ends coach, right? Tight ends coach and co-OC. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yep.
Oh, we got some suggestions. I haven't read through this all, but maybe for the song, we've got Eminem, Bob Seger, Big Sean. Mr. Brightside is lame before the fourth quarter. What are we doing? Painting the away team's locker room pink? I don't know. Throw on a little bit of Bob Seger before the fourth quarter. What song would you pick? Which Seger song would you pick?
I don't know what night moves.
Night moves.
I don't
Working on a night moves.
Yeah,
Oh, I mean, ready for the fourth quarter.
I don't know. Get you hyped up in the fourth quarter, right? Get ready to make your move, boys. Game's almost over.
Autumn closing in. Yeah, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, the voice of an angel. I didn't even know that. What a talent.
An angel. See, that's what I should be doing. I should be in the booth making tracks. But here I am doing a podcast on a Saturday with you, Jared. We're at an hour and 19 minutes. I'm not really seeing. Said the Facebook stream is screwed up. Are you guys seeing people able to join?
No, I think it's good now.
Was it messed up?
Jesus was talking about it.
I didn't see anything about that. CJ again from the Facebook page. He says, how long before Whittingham starts listening to the Winged Helmet podcast to make sure he's really tuned in, maybe listening today? I'll say this, CJ, if he does want to get plugged in and if he wants some real good, solid information, he should be listening to the Winged Helmet podcast. There's absolutely no question about that.
Yep. We know more about football than this guy.
Seen a lot of questions about this. Dwayne Jones asking any word on a new strength and conditioning coach. No, I haven't heard that, but there are a lot of people that think that that is a position that's got to be improved on as well. Obviously, throughout the season, you had a lot of Michigan guys that were banged up. You know, you go from Ben Herbert to Tress at this point, and it seems like not a lot of guys are going to be built and wired like Ben Herbert. We all know that. He was a guy that we were really pushing to keep in this program, wanted him to come back after Sharon Moore was fired. You know, finding guys like that are few and far in between. But, Jared, it does seem like there's a strong push from the fan base. They want to see a new strength and conditioning coach.
I don't know I don't know the new strength and conditioning coach. I've met him, so I'm not going to talk bad about him. But it just seems like the hires that back then were just lazy, right? Like this guy left, next man up. This guy left, next man up. Like you didn't actually go out and see what was on the market for strength and conditioning coach. That's a big position. They spend so much time with the players when the other coaches aren't allowed to. So they build the culture, and that's what Jim Harbaugh said. You know, Ben Herbert builds the culture in that because he's with them in the offseason. He's with them when the coaches can't be around, and he's the one building that structure. So it seemed like a lazy hire. I don't know.
I'm seeing a lot of votes for different songs coming in. I'm going to throw mine. It's Ba With a Ba, Kid Rock, right?
Oh my gosh.
You're not a Ba With a Ba guy? You're not a Ba With a Ba guy?
No.
Ba With a Ba, da bang, diggy, diggy, set the boogie, set up, jump the boogie. Those are real lyrics.
They're not even real words at a school that's like supposed to be one of the
greatest
in the world.
Real lyrics. It gets the people going.
Okay, now you sound like Will Ferrell on fucking Blades of Glory or whatever. It's exotic.
I'm kidding everybody, for God's sakes. I made another Kid Rock joke before, and I started losing people that thought.
We're hemorrhaging viewers right now.
I was a Rocketeer. Colonel Angus 69 said he went and saw Kid Rock, and it was an amazing show. We'll leave it at that. We're not going to go down the Kid Rock road here today. But look, overall, that's where I sit today about this hiring, this football program. Is I feel optimistic. I understand that Kyle Whittingham wasn't at the top of the list when this coaching search started, but overall, as you saw how the process was playing out, I think Michigan ultimately worked and found its way to the best possible hire it could make during this cycle, and I'm excited about that, man. I'm excited to see what he brings to the program, but we know for sure that the focus in Ann Arbor is about to shift back to football, and that's what it's supposed to be. And so in that respect, man, I'm excited. I'm optimistic. And I think that this football program is, set once again to get themselves back into the college football playoff conversation. I got to get this one in because he paid for it. AJ Cooper from the YouTube page. He's been a rock star with the donations today. Says no, Kid Rock was just spotted. Jesus. I'm going to start over here. I want to get this one right. He says no.
Slow.
Kid Rock.
I thought I was rooting for you, man. I thought you were going to make it that time. All right, start over. Let's go. One word at a time. Sound it out, man.
The punctuation or lack thereof is, I don't know what words to put emphasis on. He says, no, Kid Rock. He was just spotted with Sparty gear. Yes, I understand.
You put a comment in there. No, Kid Rock. He was just spotted with Sparty gear. That's how you do it.
I'm going to have you read the comments.
Adding punctuation that clearly is not needed.
I'm just not good at reading. I'm a singer, Jared. That's my thing. I appreciate everybody who hopped in here for an hour and 24 minutes. Man, taking a week off of the pod, it really does a number on the ability to, get through this without making it sound like a disaster. But appreciate everybody who was in here listening. Jared, I'll talk to you about the schedule. I don't know. Will we be back this week? What are you jet setting somewhere, traveling anywhere? Will we be back tonight? Okay, so I think we'll have to look at the dates here. It's Saturday. I don't know if we do a Monday. I don't know if we do a Thursday, but we'll figure it out. There will be a show next week. It's just a matter of, is it going to be 1 or 2 shows next week? But I appreciate everybody tuning in here, joining us for an hour and a half almost. At some point, we'll see you next week. I'll practice my reading. Until then, appreciate y'all.